It's a 3,000-year-old story called the Odyssey, but this is no story from Homer. This is very different. When it's called an interpretation by Christopher Nolan, it means he's rewriting a bunch of the stuff. But is the movie good? Is it bad? Well, there's one thing for sure, folks. As we dive into our spoiler-free, honest, out-of-the-theater review, this is a movie that is extraordinarily long. This movie goes on and on and on. And unfortunately, what I would say about this film is that the first 2 hours are difficult to watch. It is a ton of exposition. It is mostly callbacks and remembrances and stories from yesteryear told through the eyes of others as we go through 2 hours. 2 hours of abomination and horror to abomination and horror. And if you thought you were going to get any kind of beauty in this film, think again. Because my thought on almost any film is, if you're going to do the horrors and the abominations, if you're going to do a Saving Private Ryan, I get it, I understand. But you got to give people something that they're fighting for, something beautiful. And there's no point in this movie. I mean, here's something, we get a puppy. And listen, they make this crummy too, okay? You know what? I'll spoil this. This is teeny weeny itsy bitsy. This puppy that they save is one of the puppies they don't throw off the cliff in the movie. What? Yay. Yeah. No, I think Jonas is aghast and aghast right now.
They throw puppies off of buildings?
The good guys are throwing the puppies off a cliff that they don't want, and that's a puppy they keep. So,
are they? Why are they killing the puppies? That makes no sense. Why would they not just leave the puppies there?
Cruella de Vil. Not even she throws the puppies off individually. Wah, wah, wah.
Are they trying to? Okay, so forgive me on this one. Are they trying to villainize these people? Or are they trying to say this is just how hard the times were? Why would they do this to?
Let me come back to that. That's a great question, Jonas. Let me finish the thought on the axe, and then we'll come back to that, because that is a key part of this spoiler-free review. There are 2 hours. There's 2 hours that are very difficult to watch, and we don't get happiness. So we have nothing to fight for. We really don't have a scene where Odysseus and his wife are happy. We get a lovemaking scene where they're sad. We never get.
What?
Yep, they're sad. I would
suggest they're doing it wrong.
No, it's the last time they're going to do it before he leaves, so they're sad. But we never get them being a family. We never get to see him happy with his son. None of that. There's no joy. And for 2 hours, it is a joyless jump from one exposition to the next exposition of horrible, terrible, awful things. Okay. The third act is where I thought, well, finally, and by third act, I mean the third hour. By the third hour of this film, we get to a point where it turns into John Wick in ancient Greek times. And in the third act, I was having a good time until a few of the final flipperooskies they pull, where they try to pull the Sixth Sense. And at that point, I said, this movie doesn't make sense. And I'm now not liking it as much anymore. Okay? But I'm not going to tell you what those things are in the spoiler-free. We'll talk about it later. All right. Jonas, you had a great question. Are they trying to villainize the good guys, right? Odysseus and his crew. Right. And the answer seems to be yes. Now, not everybody's going to figure this out, Jonas. Not everybody who watches this film, because you got to understand some stuff about this. In the original Odyssey, 3,000 years old, Odysseus is a hero. Is that right, Jonas?
Yeah. He's a war hero. They're waiting for him to return, or unless you're one of the suitors, you're waiting for his wife to give up on him returning. Right.
So in this movie, because Odysseus is sort of the original superhero in storytelling, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's like the original Superman. Okay.
He's one of the few people who has a story with a sequel.
Yeah. Okay. So that's a good point. So in this movie, Christopher Nolan's The Odyssey, Odysseus, I would say, is not necessarily a hero. And it's going to be hard for me to explain why, so I'm going to leave this as generic as I can because I don't want to spoil it. But in this movie, Odysseus does something that we all for the past 3,000 years thought was a cool thing that the heroes used to win, but in this movie is depicted as being a war crime, and as a result, Odysseus is shackled with guilt And he is actually at the heart of civilization crumbling. And he is living with that.
But the puppies, that's fine to them, right?
Well, a puppy or two, thrown off a cliff, it'd be okay.
I'm just gonna point out that this is shorthand in movies. If you want somebody to be you have them cruel to animals.
Yes. Okay, so let's talk about the casting. The casting is bizarre, Jonas. And there's a lot of stunt casting here. Here's what I think is going on. This is an ultra-masculine film. And I think Christopher Nolan figured out, if I make an ultra-masculine film, I have to do something for it to be an awards contender, or for me to be able to get away with making a masculine film. And what he did is he did a lot of very interesting casting choices that we've talked about, we know about. One of those casting choices, if I can get this pull up, let's see, there we go.
Was it Cameron Manheim as Calypso?
One of the interesting choices, well, I'll tell you what, before I say the thing about the artist formerly known as Paige, who plays Sinon, is that the right name, Jonas?
I believe so. S-I-N-O-N?
Yeah,
or
Sinon.
S-I-N-N-O-N?
Who's not in the original Odyssey at all, right?
Right.
Okay. So before I get to that, let me say this. If you go to the Odyssey expecting it to be Greek, that's not what this is. Christopher Nolan's The Odyssey is not Greek. It's quasi-Greek. Like, I guess the islands look Greek, but it's not Greek. And it's not Greek in the way, Jonas, that if you went and watched a historic Japanese samurai film, and suddenly there were Europeans in the ancient Japanese samurai film, and then there was a black guy, and then there was a Native American, and suddenly there's an Australian with a boomerang. You know what I mean? Like, that would be the kind of thing where you'd say, well, that's odd. And if you did a historic African film, and suddenly, you had a mariachi band riding around on donkeys, you'd say, I didn't see that coming, frankly. I was not prepared for that. There is a scene in this film that I think stands out, where for some reason, somebody in the ship that Odysseus is on decides they're going to jump off and swim in the water. For those of you who have read the book, you might know what I'm talking about, but no spoilers, so we'll no spoil. There's a scene where somebody jumps off the ship to go swim towards an island. And it's an Asian guy. And we've never seen the Asian guy before. It's just suddenly Odysseus has an Asian soldier on his ship, and that Asian soldier jumps off. And there are sprinkled throughout this film all kinds of people from all kinds of ethnicities, except nobody looks Greek. So I guess I would take it back. I guess what I would say is it would be like watching a Japanese samurai film set in the 1700s where not a single person is Japanese. It's a bizarre thing. Okay, the casting choice. All right, the artist formerly known as Paige is in this film for less than 5 minutes. But this character, who was not in the original Odyssey, but is in Christopher Nolan's The Odyssey, is a very key character. And this actor does not accurately portray a large, burly, masculine male soldier from ancient Greece. It does not work. I'm not trying to be mean, but I have to accurately describe this. This person, and you can see them on the screen right now, this person plays this role and appears like a 12-year-old boy who has an aging disorder and thus has wrinkles. The other thing is, because this person does not have a traditionally, I'm doing everything I can, a traditionally masculine voice, when you run into them at a later point where they have to give their speech to Odysseus and they're angry, it sounds like Marge's sisters from The Simpsons instead of a scary masculine voice. It's like, Marge, what did you do to us? Why? We were just trying to sit around and watch movies. That's actually way deeper than it actually is, but okay. And you see this kind of stuff again, okay? So like, here is, what's this guy's name, Jonas? The guy, Leguizamo, is that his name? John Leguizamo?
Luigi Mario.
Okay. Well, he's in here, and he has an accent, and that's fine. I don't know what ancient Greek people, sounded like, but it's still a little odd to have an accent that doesn't match anyone else's. And
Wait, like a British accent, so he just sounds ancient,
No,
or
no, it's not a British accent. I'll let people watch it and figure it out on their own. I'm not going to try to guess it, but it's not the accent you're looking for. So this is an odd film, and it's 2 hours of slogging.
I thought it was God that he sounded like Sid the Sloth.
Yeah. But Jonas, there are people out there who are going to like this film. There are. And some of our friends are going to like this film. Some of our friends are going to like this film, and they're going to be afraid to say it because they don't want to get hit with the backlash. And I get that. I'm not afraid of it, of course, but
there's people in the chat who like this film, and that's their prerogative.
Yeah.
It's fine.
But I understand why they like it. They like it because if you can get through those 2 hours, there's a third act that is, by golly, it's revenge time. And folks, if you need a good revenge movie, that third act, if you could skip the first 2 hours, that third act is just flat out revenge. I mean, it is revenge after revenge after revenge, and the revenge is glorious until the end. And because this is spoiler free, I won't say what it is they do that changes the Odyssey completely. I'll simply say it means that Odysseus is not necessarily a hero. And they pull a Sixth Sense situation with, I won't say the actress. I won't tell you who is the Sixth Sense character, but somebody's playing Bruce Willis in this movie. Somebody is the Bruce Willis character from Sixth Sense. And that also flips everything to do with the Odyssey. So if you go into this and you recognize this is based on a 3,000-year-old story, but it is definitely not the 3,000-year-old story, it takes those characters and twists and turns it in odd, strange ways. And if you recognize it's going to be a very hard film to get through for 2 hours, technically amazing. Technically amazing. I mean, there's no doubt about it. The cinematography is awesome. The set design is awesome. It's not historic in any way. The dialogue is difficult because the dialogue, although I had no problems understanding it, they refuse to use contractions, but they use modern American accents and dialect without contractions again. But then sometimes they'll say things that just, like, we were using classical kind of speech just in modern English, and then they'll be like, blank you mother, it's like, what? What?
Huh?
Where did that come from? Oh, there's one other thing I need to say. There's another thing. The plot of this film completely and totally revolves around and it's not obvious at the first, but I don't think this is a spoiler, honestly. This film revolves around the idea that the golden rule and morality and ethics precedes Christianity and is part of ancient Greece, or Judeo-Christianity, I should say, and precedes that, and that there is something called Zeus's law, and that breaking Zeus's law is a horrific, terrible moral sin that is unforgivable, and it basically means you're supposed to be a really good person. So that's the movie as best as I can tell you, folks. It's a beautiful film in many parts. It's muddled in others. The dialogue is difficult. The sound is awful. There are very loud, abrasive sounds. It is almost unbearable in the Cyclops scene. But this movie is trying to say something. This is not slop. It just doesn't come together. It just doesn't work in the end. There's too many things changed and strange. And by the end of the film, you just say, we could have done this in 2 hours. We didn't need 3 hours plus. Or we could have done this as 2 movies, although the first movie would have then been unwatchable. Jonas, your thoughts on the review so far? Then I'll pull the score up. Go for it. Ask me questions. I'll see what I can do.
I do have one question. Was the soundtrack any good? You said the sound wasn't
good,
but sometimes, like Interstellar, one of the complaints about Interstellar that I disagree with, that a lot of people are like, I can't hear what they're saying when the scene it's not that you're communicating information, it's that the soundtrack is probably more important than the dialogue. So
Travis Scott as the bard is awful. Now, he's not awful. He's doing his best he can, but it is awful to have. And again, it makes no sense to have somebody in dreadlocks in ancient Greece. It just doesn't make any sense. And he's the bard, and he's beating the floor. It'd be like if a sumo wrestler showed up. Like, I love sumo wrestlers, but if a sumo wrestler shows up in ancient Greece, I'm going to be like, I don't get this. I love E Honda, but I don't need the 1,000 fist slap right now. So here is Travis Scott the Bard. And by the way, they would never do this with any other kind of thing, right? They would never give you a historical African movie and be like, you know what we need in here? We need Vanilla Ice, man. We need him. But he's banging his staff and he says, I guess poetic things, but it's just not, it does not work. It is awful. Okay. The soundtrack, though, there's no music per se, and there's no, that I can remember, any orchestral stuff. It's like if you took sheet metal and you banged it, because they're trying to use what could have been instruments then, but it's so they talked about gongs, Gongs, but the gongs they're using in this are not the kind of you're used to. It's like giant sheets of metal that are just rackety. And then they use a lot of human voice work, but it's not Gregorian chant. It's something else. I don't know. It's layered. This is going to sound worse than it is. It's not this bad, but it's like layered moaning.
Yeah. Who did the soundtrack?
Oh, I don't know. Somebody who shouldn't have done it.
Yeah. This sounds like Nolan's gone off his rocker a bit. Is one of the few people in Hollywood that can do whatever he wants and have other people pay for it. And here we are.
I will say that Matt Damon does a tremendous job. I mean, he gives it all. And Anne Hathaway, although I disagree with the way her character is written, she gives it everything she's got. And Tom Holland, although he doesn't get much, really, he does what he can with it. But Matt Damon is really carrying everything in this movie. He is carrying everything, and he does. If Matt Damon did not have the performance, this is a much more difficult movie and a harder score to give. Jonas, any other questions you got?
I do have a question about. I've heard from several people that Matt Damon and Tom Holland scenes together are actually quite effective.
Yes,
and that it's probably one of the better performances that Tom Holland has given in a popular movie.
It almost saves the movie. That part that they're talking about almost saves the movie. And I thought it was going to. What I thought was, this is so odd to me because if this was a 90-minute or a 2-hour film, like I went through 60 minutes of awful to get to 30 minutes of good, but boy, this is good. And they had me where I thought, that's how this is going to be, that I've suffered through 2 hours, but this final hour somehow is making up for it. And the Tom Holland, Matt Damon scenes, I thought, when they were happening, I thought, this is it. And then we get to the very, very end of the film, and that's when they do the switcheroo that I thought, that doesn't work for me. And now I'm disappointed. Because it's kind of like John, it's kind of like if you got, it's kind of like, Jonas, if you get 2 unpleasant hours, and then you get an hour of John Wick. And I like John Wick. And then John Wick gets told he's bad for being John Wick. Or the audience gets told John Wick is bad for being John Wick. And that's where I said, oh.
Right. Which is inappropriate for John Wick. You have the audience show up for one thing and then you get preached at. So the original Odyssey, there's many different interpretations of what the morals of the Odyssey would be, but it's a man coming home to reclaim what's his. There's themes of loyalty, steadfastness, endurance. What are the themes of this film?
PTSD, war crimes, delayed gratification, and vengeance.
Well, the last two sound like they could be a formula for a good movie. The first two, why would anyone want to pay to see that?
So if they had hammered home the delayed gratification aspect of this movie would be stellar, because they've got the recipe for that. If both Odysseus and his wife delay their gratification, they delay everything for the other. And if that's and parts of the movie get this, where Odysseus is put in contrast. The reason that he is the guy who the gods allow to survive is because he has the willpower to not fall for the lust or the sin or the hunger. He manages to subdue his emotions and his drives in order to survive. And if that and his wife's determination to wait for him and his son's determination to never give up, if that was the theme of the film, that everybody should emulate that, and then the world around you, no matter how barbaric it is, cannot defeat you in that, then we've got a movie. And unfortunately, it teases that, we get some of that, and then it abandons that. And that makes it less than. Okay. Jonas, it's time for a review score on this, eh? And then we'll go to spoilers. Sound good to you?
Yeah, I'd say so.
Now, folks, before I put the review score up, I just want to let you know there are going to be a lot of people who like this film, and there are going to be a lot of people who don't like the film. The people who are going to like this film, people who really love attention to detail in film, and they're cinephiles, and that they, if they adore that, this movie is going to make, like, they'll forget all the rest of the stuff. The people who are going to love it, if you are an admirer of history, but you also don't mind revising history, you might go into this like academically, like as an academic film, and you might come out, because I can hear some of my friends saying, oh, it was amazing how they took this and that from the Odyssey and they twisted it just the right way. And like, I can see people getting kind of lost in that and loving it. And then I can see people who love a revenge tale. And they say, I don't care about all that stuff, bro. You're way too intellectual. You're over your skis, man. This is too much. I just wanted to see him get revenge, and I got exactly what I wanted after 2 hours. They're probably going to have a good time. I think the people who are going to hate the film, Jonas, are going to be the people who are purists about this and say this is a historic story and it should, like, you shouldn't change it because it's foundational to the West. I think they're going to hate it. I think casual audiences are going to despise this. Like, if you're a dude who loves this kind of stuff, Gladiator kind of stuff, John Wick kind of stuff, and you take your beloved to go see it, she is not going to have a good time unless she's into the same sort of thing. She's going to get you. You are not going to enjoy what you wished you enjoyed after the film, if you get my drift, okay? So, anyway, here's the score I'm going to give it, folks. I am going to give, well, hang on. There we go. Christopher Nolan's The Odyssey official review score from the Pro Channel, 6.5 out of 10. It is technically impressive. It is it's a tour to something, but it's a tour that doesn't work for me. Overall, I would say I don't want to see it again, and it should have been cut in half. Half of this movie is plenty. Plenty.